Start the meeting for the Capital Projects Committee. And Jackie, do you have anything before we turn it over to Lauren?
Yeah, we could start, I guess, just
Okay.
like a collection system update.
Oh, wait a minute, hold on one second. Tom wanted to speak to you guys for just a second.
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
a couple of seconds.
It's a couple of seconds. Thank you. I'm Tom McNellis, Cooksport Road here in Eastham, and the chair of the Energy and Climate Action Committee. And first, I want to thank you for all the hard work you're doing on a very difficult project, a very urgent project, very important to the town. What I'm here to do is just to urge the committee on behalf of the Energy and Climate Committee to consider the possibility of making the site solar ready. And I did submit a letter which just went in after our meeting last night, which we voted to submit the memo of recommendation. I know it's very difficult, but site trade-offs and the design trade-offs that are ongoing, best to get that sort of desire on the table now. And given that at least by the calculations in the Apex memo, the energy used by the plant is going to increase the town energy usage by about 70%. So it's a pretty substantial number. And the opportunity to reduce the operating costs, annual operating costs by, it looks like as much as 9%, would be a great option to add to, a future project at the site. But of course, making it solar ready is an important consideration to maximize return on investment on such a future project. So just wanted to get those on the table. That memo, I'm sure, will be circulated around, and we are happy to engage in additional dialogue or anything else that we can do to assist.
When you submitted the revised proposal that gets above the cut line, do you include solar to get us more points? I thought that was one of the things you added in.
Right, and kind of the way they ended up doing it was just putting us on the list. They didn't, yeah.
Okay,
they
I didn't know.
didn't-
I just wanted to make sure. Did you know that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I didn't want to make sure there was no gap in the knowledge.
Just for the rest of the committee's sake, I think we've all been very supportive of that type of proposal where it makes sense. We know we have a lot of site constraints. So one of the things I asked Tom and his committee to do, which I'm sure they will be doing, is looking at appropriate sites throughout town for solar. We had a proposal several years ago that didn't get past town meeting. That might be a site, but there might be other sites or other things that we could do. And I think that's an important thing to offset the cost. Anything we do to offset those annually recurring costs is going to be hugely important. So, we're about 30% design. We still got a long way to go. So with the work of Tom's committee and you folks, when we finally get things in front of town meeting, we can kind of align them and put them in a package that people understand, hopefully.
I just want to make sure it was.
Yeah, no.
Okay, cool.
And we'll get that package to you, that proposal to you.
I guess his point is, whatever could be done in this 30% stage or wherever we are.
Between 30 and 60.
Yeah, to try to see if there's any options in this project.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So is putting it on the plan the best option? Right? There's other options, right? Where we can bring solar in from someplace else, right?
Based on the last CVEC bid, where the carport solar came in very expensive. What we were believing at this point is we should probably concentrate on rooftop, which is most affordable, and then potentially ground mount. The rooftop, though, is only going to cover about 17% of the site energy usage. So it's a good start, and if that's all we can get, that's a good thing to have. If there's some areas we can sneak in some ground-based solar arrays, that would be, that would be awesome. One of the areas, the only undisturbed area, unfortunately, is over the drain basin, the drainage basin, and that maybe could work, maybe not. I don't know.
Is that the recharge beds?
No, I don't think we can touch the recharge.
We can't put it on top of the recharge.
No, he was thinking about the stormwater basin.
Yeah, even the stormwater is gonna be tough.
I know.
To put something on there.
Yeah.
And aside from the building, which Lauren probably will talk about,
the roof will be designed to accommodate, solar panels, but beyond that, I think the site is very much, consolidated.
The only thing that they did speak about, and it's, I think was in your proposal, so I probably should just wait till they see it, but since Lauren's here and everyone's here, is there roof design issues if we can't rotate the buildings to face south, which probably is not likely to happen? Could we perhaps have a flat or slightly angled roof that would facilitate more coverage?
Yeah, so we are going to make sure that the structure is designed to be able to accommodate the weight of any solar panels. And also we're designing the roof structure to be a standing seam roof, so that also helps in accommodating solar panels in a future project. We did look at some options and tried to be able to orient the building or even the roof structure a little bit differently to be able to be south facing, but it would kind of end up being, we're like everyone's been saying, the site is pretty tight, and if we can't really shift the building with how we have it now, and if we made the roof structure face south, we just, I think it would take away some of the aesthetics of the building. So it still will be able to handle solar panels, and it'll just be a slightly less efficient at the other angle. So, but we are looking at if there's the possibility, considering snow loads and wind loads, that we can make the peak a little bit, I guess I'll say shallower, to be able to accommodate the best solar energy possible. We'll do that.
Awesome.
My understanding that the self-exposure isn't as important as it once was with modern glass and panels, that they still can produce quite a bit of power.
There is reduction in the efficiency when it's not pointing south, and that depends on how far off of south it is. I mean, that could be calculated.
Yeah.
The worst orientation is, I think, what I'm guessing, it looks like is the better one for the current design option, which is a ridge that is north-south, which means that the panels, you'd only use potentially half the panels, but on the east or the west side. If you could change the pitch, as Rich was saying, and make it flatter, or maybe, a slightly sloped over the whole building, that would be optimal as well.
Wondering about a mansard roof with a flat on top, but pitched on around the eaves. Seen some buildings recently that from the ground you can't really tell what's going on top, but basically on top there's a flat roof. Anyway, something to consider with the design of the buildings.
We'll talk more about that. And we'll get the proposal out to you. Okay, I'm going back to Jackie.
This letter?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
And who is Apex?
I'll change the name.
I'm sorry.
Just for the SRF application. Okay, I guess I'll just give a quick update on the collecting system before Lauren goes into the site design.
Thank you.
I think I had mentioned
Anytime.
before, I want to say we're up to 150 CAD sheets, so we have all of the design laid out and done in CAD. The surveyor's been working for about 2 months. They're wrapping up Route 6 today and getting over the first draft, because we wanted to get all that Route 6 work done before Memorial Day. And then we have kind of staggering the consultants, the sub-consultants, based on what each of them has to do. So the markout consultant, GPRS, is starting on this Thursday. Now that the surveyor's finished with Route 6, they're gonna focus on the full width markouts on all the roads we identified that had private electric that Eversource wasn't gonna mark out with DigSafe that we found during the water project. Just so we're able to capture all of that. So while they start over the next week, they said it would take them, it was around like 10 roads. And then the surveyor can piggyback off them and pick up all the markings so that we have them both ways. And then we are eyeing confirmation with the police and everything, marking out some of the borings again on Route 6 to then do them the week after next.
Or is it we didn't do before?
Right. Then they'll just keep moving forward and then move to the side roads for the rest of the borings. And now that all the subs are engaged, they'll just kind of start and stop depending on how far each of them gets, so we don't lose any markings.
Thank you.
So all of this was in what was approved last town meeting, 24.
Yes,
The design work was at $6-7 million. That's
Yeah.
what's funding all of this, just to
That's
make sure I
correct.
understand. what-
yeah,
And Hillary, I have the labels for you, but we were gonna do a mailing
oh,
to
yeah,
all the parcels. Just like a letter that says, because eventually the surveyors, they've been focusing on the roads, but they're gonna have to get the house sill elevations. And that's how we can finalize our design. So they'll be going on people's properties.
so you're gonna do a mailing to all the residents that are in phase 1.
Yep,
And are they doing borings on property or just
nope,
an elevation?
Not on private property.
For the pitch. But they'll see him out in front of the house, right?
People do ask question ones,
Mhm.
stuff like that.
They don't always read their mail either.
and they'll be staggered, so they're focusing on, we don't wanna lose any of the marks from the mark out company, so they'll start mostly in roads, so there's plenty of time before they start actually going on people's properties.
Okay.
And then one thing, if you wanna touch on the pumping stations, we'll probably defer the geotech work until we have easements or access to these locations, right?
Right, yeah, we wanted to, well, we'll have separate discussions about, we were kind of lining up. The Elks, they were kind of going through their board meeting processes to
Mhm.
get us approved. And then we were looking at the elementary school, Children's Place. That duplex across from Salt Pond, which I think was at town meeting.
Yeah.
And then the very southern tip of the landfill site below the solar panels.
So that's cool.
Fine.
And we may be eliminating one, just to see if it's feasible, if it's not really doing a whole lot, it's just a trade-off to see what cost implications are opposed to going with,
So 4 sites?
right now we have 5. but
Five.
we-
I must have missed one. So I got
Elks,
Elks,
Elementary School, Del Gizzy,
that's the duplex, right?
yep,
CCCP,
yep, and the transfer station.
oh, transfer station.
South, really south.
Okay, on the other.
And we're also been pulling together, I know, Lauren brought it up before, when we submit the groundwater discharge permit, we have to have the collection system reports as well, so we're doing the basic design report for the pump stations, and we've been researching all the grinder pump vendors, manufacturers, who else, on the Cape is using who, working through those specifications.
Well, I think you have it all covered.
Lauren? Do you have anything for us today?
Yes. Let me share my screen. Screen 3. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, can everybody see that? Let me get my screen oriented better. Okay, there we go. Okay, so brief update for today. So did Kayla, were you able to print out some of the drawings and the, okay, perfect. I see someone holding them right now. So they're probably a little bit easier to look at than on the screen, but we did want to present a revised site plan that we've been working on. After a couple meetings ago with the town, after getting some feedback about the location and the potential perception from the community, we took a step back and looked at some of the site to see how we could orient things a little bit differently, mainly taking into consideration the neighborhoods to the east and to the north, and making sure that anything that would have a potential odor or noise on occasion would be located, as far away from those neighborhoods as possible. So this is the site plan that we have come up with, and I'll go to this one, which is a little bit more zoomed in and kind of has some of the colors with it. And I do at the end have our old one if someone would want to reference it. But what we have changed here is essentially moving the administration and operations building and the SBR building, or the treatment building as we're calling it, from these general areas down to the basically southwestern portion of the site. So in doing this, we did like having the building over here because the elevations were able to be taken advantage of with this pit. If everyone remembers the DPW site, it's kind of depressed in this area. But in this area towards the southwestern portion of the site, the elevations were somewhat similar. So we were able to maintain a lot of the work that we had already done relative to hydraulics and pumping schemes and things of that nature. Just had to change things around just slightly. And then we were also able to maintain a lot of the recharge beds in their originally placed areas, so that the perk tests and some of the other tests that were already done would be still able to be utilized. We are going to have the Mass DEP representative come back and probably witness 2 more perk tests. But we actually have done perk tests in these areas, so we're pretty confident of the recharge rates that we're going to be receiving there. So just a few things to make sure that we have the site that best meets the community's needs and helps mitigate some of their concerns. So I guess, any questions on this?
Did you add another recharge bit?
So no, actually, it's the same square footage of recharge area. It's just originally here. Actually, if you don't mind, I will skip to the end really quickly.
So I see 5 in the so these are just bigger, right?
Yeah, so you can kind of see we ended up having 6 here with 1 smaller, and these 5 were essentially bigger. So this was where originally everything was. So the admin building here, SBR building, and those 6. So we still have 6. Let me see if I can get back to this more quickly. Go through all these. Okay, there we go. No, sorry guys. Just trying to be fancy here. So yeah, so there's still 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, and they actually, for the most part, still maintain the same amount of area that's necessary for phase 1 and phase 2, or the potential phase 2. So they're just slightly, different shapes. I joked at our meeting that I'm very much a symmetrical person. So, I would love for them to all be the same size, but it's very common for these recharge beds to be all different sizes to be able to meet the needs of the site. So this is fairly typical. And also, just in case you're looking on the site plan, we did allow for some future expansion areas in some areas of the site. Really, these are the forested areas of the site that we really wanted to try to maintain as much of that tree buffer as possible. And then actually, we don't have our landscape architect on this yet, but we're actually planning on adding additional fencing and evergreen trees to potentially block the view even more than these trees already do. So yeah, so still 6. Any other questions for this? And you can always come back to it. Okay, So this is just I like to show this to try to illustrate what the topography is in the area. Again, we're trying to make use of some of the existing elevations so that we have a little bit less of cut and fill to do. Trying to take advantage of this existing pit for our stormwater basin. I know one question that came up was we had originally done all the calculations for the stormwater model and had the size of the basin for the previous site plan. So you know, this, now that this is pretty much set, we are going to be doing those calculations again just to confirm the size of this basin. It does take on not only impervious area from the, I guess I'll say the DPW and future wastewater treatment plant site, but it also takes stormwater from the transfer station site. So it does end up being a sizable basin to be able to accommodate all that. So next, I wanted to show a little bit more. I know I was able to show some of the drawings, so bear with me because I do want to show the, and can everyone still see my screen with the change?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we will have all of the buildings in the Revit model, but right now what's, you know, finished enough to be able to show is still the admin building. But I did want to show that we can actually go in and actually I think we can even have, you know, external users be able to view the site that we have. So this isn't the current version of the admin building, but this is what it was before we had a few additional comments with some of the offices and the break room, and like this is our lab area. So you actually, in these models, and I'm not really perfect at this yet, but you can actually like bring your person into here. Of course, it's not going to do what I want it to. You can actually like walk it. Oh yeah, there we go. You can like go through the door. Oh, it let me do it before. Okay, I might not show that. Bear with me 1 second. But it is really cool. So, you know, once I get a little more mastery in this, we'll be able to show you and be able to walk you through the site, walk you through the different buildings. So you can get, you know, a firsthand view of what it really looks like. But again, this is, you know, something that we'll have for the other buildings as well. And it just is a nice tool to be able to show. I guess any questions with that? Sorry, I wasn't really good at getting inside the building, but
Lauren, I just want to explain to the committee, because I think this is a change since last time we talked as a group. We initially had additional administrative office space, the idea that maybe DPW admin staff would relocate to that building as for a future, you know, DPW renovation might minimize what had to be built. Perhaps you'd be able to just get away with the garage and some open staff space. But with the reconfiguration, the admin building now is not going to be in a public area. So we did scale back the admin building piece of the wastewater building. And we'll just continue to operate the way we do now at the DPW, so.
yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up. So yeah, we are looking at kind of making some efficiencies right now, so it won't have the public facing area to pay for any bills or anything of that nature. And we are looking at a couple options of how to accommodate some common space and maybe make the break room a little smaller. So more to come in our next iteration. Okay. So that's that. So again, I didn't have the model. It was it's a little still too rough right now to show, but I did want to show a little bit more of the treatment building. So again, this is one in the far south west corner of the site. I think we might have shown just a quick plan of this before, but these are our 3 sequencing batch reactor basins. I can't remember what presentations you might have seen or gotten, but we are looking into the feasibility of covering these. They're not typically covered, but we are looking at the possibility of doing that. Essentially, it's making sure that there are a proper intermediate supports for usually like a fiberglass type cover, as well as making sure that there is good access to the tank so that the operators can, do what they need to do and see what they need to see. But knowing that, odors can be a concern, we're looking into that, but again, it's not typically covered. However, these sledge holding tanks will have covers over top of them, and they will be connected into the odor control system, as well as the headworks facility, which is over here. And then I'll show you a section view, and you might have that in the PowerPoint as well, but we have our chemical facilities, and they're actually set down in a slight depression so that it will double as secondary containment for these tanks. And then this is our blower room, and I do have a picture from Mashpee that will look somewhat similar that I'll show in a little bit. So that's essentially the, I guess I'll say the second floor, or the more ground level floor. There's kind of a lot of different entrances to accommodate the grade in the area. But these tanks themselves, and I do have another picture at the end, are going to be approximately 6 to 8 feet above grade. I'll show a picture of Orleans, which they're, I think, 20 to 30 feet above grade. So, you won't be able to see them walking around, but they're not going to be, really, really high in the air. And this is more, someone have a question?
Have you seen the transfer station up on where we dump our trash? Where do I see of that building?
So you will see the building, and I'd have to check the elevations, but I do think that's a little bit higher or maybe similar.
I think it's 13 feet above grade from that angle, Lauren.
Yeah, so you'll be able to see part of the building, and then the tanks will kind of be in the back of them. So you might see a little bit of the tank, like maybe the southern tank.
But if you're down at that lower level of the transfer station where you drop off metal, you'll be looking right at it, correct?
So
Right? I'm just saying, as you go down that hill.
Yeah.
At the transfer
Higher
station.
level.
Yeah. From
Yeah.
where you start, and it's lower than, it goes back up.
Correct.
Yeah, so you won't be looking into the tank from that metal area. You won't be looking into the tank, but you'll be looking at the side of the tank
Right.
and the side of the building. Yes.
The same elevation, basically.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Once we get the model, we can kind of show it how it would look on the grade, which I think will probably be helpful to people to get a good sense of it.
Well, you show a cross section there, Lauren, through the tank and then the building. I don't think there is one in real. Oh, there it is, right?
Yeah. Yep. So this view, let me get my bearings straight. So this is going to be looking at it from the east. So you're kind of looking into the building. And so, pardon me, because we have made some updates, so it's shifting things around. But then, so this is our post EQ tank, or no, maybe I take this back. It's a cut in the middle. So you can kind of see these are our chemical tanks that are set down into the structure to act as secondary containment. This post EQ tank, which you see on the plan, is actually underneath the blower room, and will have an access hatch. So that's not actually open to atmosphere. So, you won't be able to see that. We do, if you looked at the second plan, we do have a pipe gallery. So there's a couple, and this has been updated since, but we've got a couple entrances into this pipe gallery where there'll be some pumps to pump throughout the treatment plant. And you can kind of see this is that stairwell leading into it. And then the headworks facility is up here. You'll be able to enter that, just about at grade. And then on the east side is where you'll have a roll-up door to be able to remove any screenings and grit. And then these are our SBR tanks that you can see on this side. So kind of looking in from the west, the chemical tanks will just be slightly above in the building or in the room, where you can see them.
Building have a roof?
So yes, the one side of the building has a roof, and then the other here, let me go back to that. So this side of the building will have a full roof, with that ridge line, north-south. And then this part is essentially tanks that will be, these ones in theory would be opened or covered, but at 8 feet, approximately 8 feet above grade, and similar, and these will be covered. So this will have a roof, and I don't think, no. So yeah, so it's this portion that will have a roof, and then these tanks, are pretty set in the ground.
And is this where you were thinking about putting a roof because of the, to accommodate people that were concerned about sight or smell?
Yeah,
Or
so
partial roof?
yeah, we were looking at when we had the building on, so essentially when we were looking at the design before, we had these tanks facing Old Orchard Road. So we're looking at ways to cover them, or like cover them with a structure or a fence or something along those lines, since there's a lot more people and, activity over there. But now, they're towards the, southwestern area. You might have some traffic on the trail, but
Yeah, okay.
so we'll again have some.
Mm.
Did you ask a question? Sorry.
No, what's the right of way off the bike path?
Oh, I
So
don't know.
that's DOR.
Yeah, but we're not going up against, we're not,
This is not
Yeah.
that close to the bike
Yeah.
path.
it's definitely on our property.
No, I'm just,
With
I'm
setback.
trying to get an
There's
idea
an
how
access
far
road
away
behind
the
the
bike
bike
path is.
Not far.
Yeah, but the railroad had,
Yeah, I'll find out for you if you want.
they staked off behind my house, I know.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good right away.
I would think it's a good 40-foot right away.
It's all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did have a drawing, and I don't remember. I'd have to jump back at these to see, but we did have a drawing that showed a distance from the bike path, or maybe the bike path property at one point. But I have to double check. So I guess a couple things, and these might be, I don't want to steal any thunder, but some things that maybe were being brought up relative to, public outreach. These are a few slides that I had sent to Hillary, and I think maybe you incorporated them. But just, so everyone on CPC is aware, we did try to look at some of the things that the community would be most concerned with. And, we picked out essentially noise, traffic, and odors. So we were looking at noise and tried to find like the most prevalent sources of noise. And honestly, for noise, we're really not, I guess I would say, I was not too worried about it. We have process blowers, which can be very noisy, especially some of the ones, from years ago, can be very loud. But these ones are, and this is just an example from Mashpee, but an Airzen blower, they're turbo blowers, and they are not only are they in the building, but they will be in a noise attenuating enclosure. And I think I mentioned at the last meeting that, there's a specification that keeps the decibel level a meter away at a certain amount. And I think it's like the decibel level of a loud restaurant. So just want to talk about, how we're mitigating certain things to help with the community outreach. Truck traffic, similar thing. I think we've gone over this. There'll be sludge haulers that'll come a couple days a week in the beginning, and then maybe once a day by the time the collection system's fully built out. But really, it'll be far less, and I'm probably jumping the gun on some of my truck traffic stuff. But it'll be far less than what you see at the transfer station right now. And then similarly for the generator, they'll have an outdoor enclosure. It usually has, some preventive maintenance once a month to turn it on to make sure everything's working. And then of course, if there's a power outage, it'll turn on. But it's also going to be a noise attenuating enclosure. This is one from Mashpee, so just wanted to share that.
So the trucks that we use at the transfer station versus the truck that they would use to haul sludge. I mean, that truck I see coming every day from P-Town, is that a sludge truck, the one that has got the ribs on the side?
It's like the JP Noonan type.
Yeah, no, not the JP Noonan, this truck has like ribs all along the length of the truck. And I see it maybe once a day traveling down Route 6, and it's coming from north, so I assume it's a sludge truck, but don't know.
Probably, I mean, what's the truck that collects, pumps out of the septic, like, could be 3,000, could be up to 5,000 gallons, right?
Like Honeywell?
Yeah, anyway, could be 5,000. I think those, the full build-up condition, you're probably looking for a bigger truck, right? It's like something similar to the JP Noonan. That's why I think, Lauren, this was designed for WB 60, right? That's what we talked about last time with the site guys from your office. I think it was a
Say it
W.
again?
The wheelbase on the,
Oh, so I know
WB60.
I know this site can accommodate tractor trailers because of, periodic deliveries, over the year. So I can't, if you remember that, I'll go with that.
Yeah, it was a
I can check in.
Simply because also you're also using polyaluminum chloride here for coagulation. And those things come out, usually the tank's about 3,000 gallons and, they
Yeah.
come on a very large truck and they
Like
let.
like a tanker truck.
Tanker truck,
Gas
yeah,
tank,
exactly,
right?
yeah. And
Yeah.
most ones probably will happen using the tanker truck, sludge
That's
haul,
right.
yeah. And I think, Lauren's team said, twice, 2 to 3 times a week in phase one, and then no more than once a week, in the future.
Once a day.
Yeah.
Once a week.
Yeah. Yeah, so it will depend. I know that there's lots of different sludge truck sizes depending on, and then honestly will depend on the hauler, and what they have and what's
Yeah,
most
and
efficient for them.
Yep, just down that way, and then they go out the other way.
Alright. And our trucks go out through here.
Yep.
There's no way to get them to go out the same way, right?
I don't know, could be
Just
a little
drive.
bit
They do
to
go
kind
up
of
the
turn
same
around
way.
and go
They
back
do.
the same
They
way.
do go out the same way
They go in by the DPW entrance, go behind the DPW,
and out the
through the
transfer.
middle
So
road,
in here,
and then
right?
out the transfer
Yeah.
station. No, down behind the DPW.
Mm,
Go over here.
They come in here,
Come in here,
right?
do this jog, go down here,
Yeah.
and then go out here.
Oh, okay, that's.
I don't think
We gotta outline it in the map.
Yeah.
though.
Mhm. Yeah, we should.
But I don't, Jackie, I don't think, unless I'm,
So you're
either
not
Jackie's
gonna-
wrong or I'm wrong.
In other words, the traffic's gonna go out this way, like it does today.
But Lauren, the.
Oh,
path-
they
the
moved the
path-
driveway.
The path is to go behind the DPW, right?
Yes,
Not in
sorry.
front of it.
I believe it's to go in front of it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Or no, or not in front of the DPW. You mean like right
Yeah.
here?
This is.
Yeah. So this is just for the sludge trucks and periodic
Yeah.
deliveries.
Hmm.
So this is I think this is closely lined up to where the street is currently. So this is the semi trailer, looking at how it would go through.
Yeah, they're going behind the DPW, so this way.
Lauren, I hate to be a pest, I don't wanna be confused, but I
Okay.
didn't follow, what you said didn't quite
They're
equate.
going down.
Okay.
here, or
So-
they're going,
Lauren, so if you drive in at the entrance,
Yep.
bring your cursor down alongside the DPW
Yep.
and to the back of the DPW,
yeah.
Yep.
and then straight across through that middle road.
Yep.
Between the two buildings,
Where it says sliding gate.
Yes.
that's the
That's
route,
the-
correct?
Yeah.
Okay, making sure.
Okay. Sorry.
All trucks they're picking up or delivering?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so this will be, which will be kind of hidden in between the two buildings. I don't want to say hidden, but kind of have some cover between the two buildings. So again, like I mentioned earlier, so the Headworks facility will have an overhead door right about here that will be opened when the grit or screenings need to be removed. And then I don't know if we've totally figured out exactly where it will be, but there'll be like a quick connect hose coupling for the sludge haulers to be able to connect, to be able to pump out the tanks over here. So they'll, probably park right in this area right here and, pump it into their trucks and go on. Oh, Hillary?
I just have a question. At our information session, there was a gentleman there who said that they like to come and pump this in the early morning
Oh,
hours.
yeah.
Just
Yes.
wondered if you had insight on that, because I think we might hear that again, that it's noisy at like 3 or 4 in the morning with trucks backing up and operating.
Yeah, I would say that. Okay, so I have experience with some of the sludge haulers, and they like to be able to elongate their day so they can make more money by essentially extending it throughout the day. So I can imagine that there's probably some of the haulers that like to do that, but no, typically a lot of municipalities will cut off the sludge hauling to the hours that they are available, because they want to be able to, usually from my experience, oftentimes there'll be an attendant that will assist as necessary, or if anything goes wrong, not to say anything's going to go wrong, but just to have another person there who's operating the site. So it's really it'll be up to the town to decide when the hours of, pickup are. So if the operators don't come till 7, the sludge hauling trucks don't have to come till 7. So it's,
So the
it's
hour-
really,
So the hours you can control, but what about the days in terms of when needed? So if it's needed on a Sunday, they'll show up on a Sunday. We could set the time on Sunday, but they'd have to come on Sunday? Or can we
Right.
set the days as well?
so
At first, we could.
I'm just wondering,
yeah, I mean, so it's about making sure that I guess the wastewater and sludge is processed to appropriate amount of time. So there will be some flexibility, especially early on, that, if they need to come Wednesday versus a Tuesday, they could come. So they'll probably get on a regular schedule. Let's say they're going to come, Tuesday, Thursday, in the first few years. And then in the future, most likely to be able to keep the flow of water and sludge through the treatment plant, they would have to come every day. But, on a Sunday, if they need to come between 10 and 2, they need to come between 10 and 2.
Obviously, if it requires, a truck, it requires a truck. Nothing you can do about it. I just didn't know.
Yeah. And some other municipalities sometimes, and this also we're not doing septage receiving here, but you can also set up like a card access reader. So like on a weekend, you could have your hauler, swipe a card or something like that if the operators are okay with them just hauling without them on site. So there's some options there.
Do we have a time window when our trucks are allowed to leave the transfer station?
Well, no.
No.
I mean, they start
Or,
work at
some
6:30.
larger hauler coming into it, what are we open, 7:30?
7:30,
Right.
The haulers come in during business hours.
but the workers come in at 6:30.
But our trucks going up to CMAS don't go out of the crack dawn, right?
Yes, one of them does.
It
Yeah.
does, and you don't get complaints from the.
Yeah, we do. We get complaints. That was something that was brought up at one of the info meetings that I have to deal with John.
Right,
Because I didn't realize that. I didn't realize they were going out earlier.
yeah, I know.
But we do have, right now, we have a transfer station that's open Saturday and Sunday, closed Thursday and Friday. So I don't know
Oh.
what this plant would be like, but I'm assuming we have to have 7-day
Coverage.
for people anyway, for staff, right?
You could do
For-
one reader or something, they could just.
No, but I meant like, it's not left unmanned, is it ever?
Yeah, you can for a treatment plant like this. We'll have to, I would guess once they get the process nailed down, they might not need anybody on the weekends. There's a lot of plants, smaller plants that can be staffed, a few hours a day. I would expect this would probably be staffed, definitely 5 days a week, and maybe, someone would check in on the weekends. And also depending on what remote capabilities or views they have, they can monitor it from their living room, depending on what we do there, to make sure that there's, no alarms or anything like that going off.
Okay.
So Plymouth is an SBR, and it is about, twice, 3 times, actually, no, I'm sorry, this is, Plymouth is rated. Average daily is like about 3 MGDs, but peak is like 9, but it's only staffed during the week. It's not
Okay.
even staffed on weekends.
Yeah.
And it has a separate receiving facility as well.
Did you have a question, Steve? I kept seeing your hand, sorry.
I do, thank you. Could you explain to us, the process that goes on in the open tanks?
Sure. Let's see. I have a slide that I can show you, but essentially what happens with a sequencing batch reactor is that the water flow, so the raw wastewater, once it gets screened and degraded, flows into the tanks. The blowers add air through, I think it's going to be through coarse bubble diffusers that help essentially allow the bugs to grow and to break down the wastewater. There's chemicals that are added after the aeration step, and it becomes the clarifying step. So that's when the aeration system is turned off and the sludge is allowed to settle into the bottom of the tank, and that gets pumped into your aerobic digesters. And then on the top, there's different types, but what we're looking at is an aqua aerobic system, and there's essentially a decanter system that takes the clarified water from the top. So, if you're thinking, I don't know, like sand or gravel, something falling to the bottom of a cup, you're trying to pump that sand and gravel out. Not that it'll be sludge, and then you let the stuff on top that's clarified water be pumped out, and that's what goes into the post equalization basin. And with a sequencing batch reactor, it allows that process to happen, I guess, stepwise. So you can have a tank that's in the aeration process, and then your tank next to it is in the clarifying process. So that kind of accommodates, your flow through the plant. And, once we get more flow, we'll have this post equalization tank will be another SBR basin. So you can have the system running in 3 different phases all at one time to be able to accommodate the flows.
Aeration can be odorous. You're saying this is not as bad, or it's not bad? Because you have less turbulence going on because of the bubbling system versus the spinning aerators?
Oh, yeah. So, there is what we kind of call like an earthy smell with an aeration system. It's definitely not I guess I'll say the more violent, mechanical aerators that you might see that really do splash up a lot of wastewater. So there's sometimes, some odors, but, I think a lot of times odors also can be related to what is going into your treatment plant. So, I've worked at treatment plants that have dairies or, other large industrial users that will put a slug of something into the wastewater that will, affect the odors, which, really not expecting that in Eastham at the moment. You mostly have commercial and, domestic sewage from residences. So the odors, you can't say that there's no odors, but they typically aren't covered, and typically aren't too odorous.
I know.
We can,
I'm just
we
looking
can
at.
take,
Go
we
ahead.
can take you, Steve, to, both Orleans and Chatham have open tanks that you can climb to the top of, which we have. And I honestly, I've never smelled the odor there. I don't know whether we're arriving at a different form of treatment, but we went to 3 tanks in Chatham and none of them smelled.
They're all the same, Jackie. I don't think it varies from one place to the other. I've been to a bunch of them. Like Lauren said, there's really no odor. And I know the diffusers, like they push the air from the bottom of the tank, and with air, obviously that's one, contrary to, you're injecting air into a waste stream, so the smell isn't really as bad. But you smell like, little funky smell, a little bit different, right?
Stale. It smells stale.
It's not like strong steel, right?
No.
How far away?
Well, I was.
Sometimes, you know, now I'm in the neighborhood, you know, am I even gonna?
Oh, you didn't smell
Right, not the
anything
bike
from
path,
below.
We were
at
sitting
all.
on top of the tank, you don't
Yeah.
smell that, you know.
No. When you're inside the treatment room, there's some
Yeah.
odor, and it's a weird odor, but it's still not, I
I'd
wouldn't,
like to go visit some of those.
Yeah.
if we can.
we should, and at different times when they're doing
Yeah,
different things, I
yeah,
think would be
yeah.
interesting too.
Be interesting to watch the sludge removal, just to see how
I think-
it
Yeah.
works.
So
I
that
think
was
it
my
takes a
question though,
little
Lauren, the sludge
Mhm.
removal, when the sludge is being
We're
removed
gonna pick
from the treatment tank, it's going into a closed tank, right?
Right. So really what they do, so this is probably a bad analogy, but if you have like a hose spigot,
Yeah.
you'd essentially have a large
Well,
valve, quick, like usually they do like a quick connect coupling. So the sludge hauler will come with like, let's say maybe a 4-inch, I think it's usually like a 4-inch pipe, and it'll look like maybe like a, like a dryer pipe. So it'll be kind of like flimsy, but be able to hook up and quick connect into the facility that, we'll design to be able to do that. And then they hook it up. There's locking mechanisms in place that allow for it to be, be stable. Then you open a valve, and usually a lot of these trucks will have their own, pumping systems right on them that will pump out the tank into their truck and take it away. And then, they'll go to the, I guess the receiving or hauling station, close valve, disconnect the coupling and, put it on their truck and, go away. So, if all goes well, there isn't, like sludge flowing or anything out in the open. It's more just sometimes those trucks just stink sometimes,
I'm
when you're
sorry,
behind them.
I'm gonna ask one more question,
Yeah,
because I've
yeah.
been explaining this to people, so I wanna make sure I'm explaining it right. When it's sucked out of the treatment tank, the sludge, where it's going in a pipe to an enclosed
tanker
tank.
truck, tanker truck,
No,
no?
No,
no, it's
Yeah.
going into a holding tank first, isn't it?
Yes. So so in this SBR basin, oh, I got a typo. I'll have to fix that. So at the bottom, the sludge is collected at the bottom of the tank and
Yeah,
will get pumped over to these aerobic digester tanks.
yes.
These are covered. So there will be, I'm expecting it to probably be like right about here. There is going to be some type of coupling valve that will allow the hauler to hook up. So they'll have their truck here and they'll be able to pump out of these. So like essentially similar to the SBR basins, they'll pump out of one day and then they'll come back 3 days later and pump out of the other one, and vice versa. So
No, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that, because that was
So there's
what
an
was,
intermediate step.
yes.
But it flows
Yeah.
from the into the areas, not by a truck. The truck takes it
No,
out of the
with a
area.
pipe, right?
The truck is
Yeah.
just one tiny piece. The truck isn't part of the
So
treatment.
that's enclosed, and then the truck goes to the
The pipe. and
the
then
aerator,
vacuum it
the
out.
digester
But the pipe
tank.
on this building.
yeah, so the aerobic digester actually has a function of removing, or how do I say, like making the sludge more stabilized. So removing volatile, so I'm sorry, trying to figure out a good way to explain it. But yeah, basically it's part of the treatment process. So you have an SRT, which is a solids retention time, before that hauler can bring that sludge out. And I'd have to check in our design calcs, but it's probably a few days that the sludge has to stay in there to be more stabilized before it goes on to the next spot, whether that's, incineration or, other locations.
And,
that-
I was just thinking all the questions about timing and demand for trucks and how often is a time of year thing too, right? Because from May through September, there's gonna be a certain number of these trucks in activity, and from September to May, it's gonna be really different, correct?
Yeah, that's a good point. So as the flow increases, so will the number of of trucks. So I want to say that the 7 trucks a week that we calculated was at like a peak, like a summer peak, I guess I'll say population. So, and then, early on when, you don't have as many people and not as many people hooked up, it'll be that 2 to 3 times
But
a
even
week.
still, even if it's even if there's a lot of connections, just by virtue of the fact that it's a seasonal town, from September to May, for the residents that you're trying to convince to go with this, and how often are they gonna be disrupted? How many trucks will they see? All of this stuff.
Yeah.
From September to May, the activity just goes way down.
Right. So, I mean, so when we're designing,
Because
Well,
like most people, they're outside from May
Yeah,
to
well, I'm just-
October.
Yeah, I know,
yeah, so the 7 trucks a day is based on that more populated time. So I mean, this whole treatment plant is designed
a week.
7 trucks
a week. Yeah, so like 1 a day.
I'm sorry, Lauren,
That would
that
be
just
good.
made my heart stop, let alone if one of the residents were.
Plant need
How many?
a minimum flow that this plant needs.
Yeah, they do have a range of flows, minimum and max.
No, I know, but I mean, to actually operate to work, well, I guess, not officially, but
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
remember I don't know, Lauren, not to put you on the spot, but what's the base minimum to run the plant?
Yeah, that's a good question. I might have to get back to you on an actual minimum, but with having this essentially this post equalization tank that'll eventually be an SBR tank, it does give the operator a lot of flexibility. So I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think there's necessarily a minimum. I mean, you want to have enough flow to be able to, even get down to the plant and fill up the tank.
well,
But
no,
with-
you should
with-
have it. Granted, when we start out, we're gonna have nothing, but at some point, there's a point where it will operate no matter what.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
because
if you think
Yeah.
about it, like, I don't know what, even we have toilets now that don't use as much water, but every time someone flushes a toilet or takes a shower, it's mostly water.
Right.
So there's gonna be a high volume of water
Right.
Yeah, well, that's how they.
I'm not an
they have to
engineer.
already-
Yeah.
There has to be a minimum amount to keep pressure, right?
Yeah,
Well, that's what
what I
the,
was asking.
Well, so this actually flows by gravity right now. So it flows by oh, I don't have the pipes on this one. But it'll flow by gravity. Oh no, it is here. It flows by gravity into the headworks room, and it'll just flow through the screen and flows through the vortex grit unit. And once the pump station is full enough for the actuator to turn on, it'll pump it into the SBR or the post DQ tank first, and start doing its thing. I think that's some of the benefit of having an SBR, that it can accommodate those varied flows from the get-go. So yeah, I can talk to Dave about a minimum flow that's required, but I think this happens there's so especially in the Northeast, there's not a whole lot of new plants other than it feels like the Cape going in. But yeah, this is always kind of like those startups. There's always a little bit of
Angst.
angst, little extra work trying to make sure that you're getting everything treated properly.
A couple questions on if I'm riding my bike on the bike path. Am I gonna see the tanks? Am I gonna?
Here, let me see if I.
6 feet above grade.
They're 6 feet above.
Yeah, so I think that.
Higher up, right?
Hold on.
Like that's higher. That
Yeah.
will work.
So you might be looking down.
And that's something too we can, because originally I know we had done some of the elevations through Oak Orchard. Oh my gosh, Old Orchard. There's an Oak Orchard in my area. So we didn't really look at it from the bike path, but I think I think you're just gonna see the side of the tank. Cause I wanna say that the elevation of the bike path, 42,
Yeah.
38, it's pretty close. So
Pretty close.
I think you'll probably just see the side of the tank for the most part. But that's something as we, get this. Yeah, 'cause
People are gonna ask.
yeah, I think it will be good to have because you're right. People are gonna ask. Yeah, and over here, and I think again, we're planning on putting some type of buffer landscaping fencing over here, so they won't see the odor control unit or the generator, so much. Oh, Hillary?
I was just gonna add, there's some pretty dense vegetation there at the moment
That's what I was wondering.
in between, and quite
we-
frankly,
It's not
looking at
pretty
it's really not an attractive site. There's
on either side.
so I honestly, after a site visit this past week to the transfer station site, like having a deep look around in a way I haven't yet, I sort of recognize that what we're building is actually going to appear nicer and fancier than what's there with vegetation and screening buffers. So I think if you're riding your bike by now, you might turn your head and look the other way. And once we're done, I think you might actually have a gander in just to see what's going on, because it'll be interesting. So just my personal opinion, but
No, it's true. I mean, Holmes Road is on the other side. So
Correct,
there's
which is
nothing,
already
yeah, there's nothing
industrial class.
pretty.
And on our side, this is really gonna force us to clean
Clean it
up
up.
our site.
Yeah, because you drove me around there, it was just a big dumping area, all
Exactly.
kinds of stuff.
There's, old oil tanks and old bicycles.
Boats.
And I'll say I am very biased, obviously, but there is a plant in my area, and that's next to a trail that leads around the local lake, and they are planning on putting like a public education, like public signage up to teach the public about what is behind this fence. So in the future, depending on how much you want to do with public outreach, you might be able to do something like that.
And what goes on in the odor control building?
So the odor control unit is essentially the unit that takes the vacuum, it pulls a vacuum on this headworks room and these digester tanks and treats, I can't remember which, I think we're looking at it might be a biofilter or I can't remember the other model that we're looking at, but essentially it's not a scrubber, but it essentially cleans the air before releasing it into the atmosphere. So that's where all that magic will happen to take away odors from the aerobic digester tanks in the Headworks facility. I guess any question? Oh, we didn't, okay. I didn't really get that far, but we were just talking about odors. I think we actually covered all this. So, oh yeah, so this was, I think this is the one at Orleans. Just odor control unit that exhausts the air once cleaned. And then I think we just talked a little bit about traffic. Same thing, there'll be a little general traffic, a few more workers, sludge hauling trucks, and then, occasional delivery trucks for chemicals. And, if you get a new pump or something, they'll usually come on some type of freight truck. So I don't know if you guys have these in front of you, but really these were some of the pictures. I think maybe Hillary might have included in some of the public outreach, but these are very similar. This was Mashpee. These are very similar to the style of recharge beds that we will have at Eastham. Essentially, you can kind of see maybe from, the drawing that these are the I guess I'll say pathways down for the tractor to be able to, grade things out, make sure there's not plants growing in it. So this will look very similar. And I kind of put some numbers on, the size of the recharge beds versus ours. But I do apologize, this is pre-update. So this was the size of our original ones.
This question before, Sorry, I think of recharge beds like the ones out in Nantucket. Do we ever change the soil and the sand that's in there, or is it just?
I think every so often you gotta go in there and scrape the top because of
Yeah.
the buildup, just a
Right.
sacrificial sand, like about an inch or so, every so often. You may not need it here at the beginning, but,
Right.
and then just, you know, they scrape it with a machine, just barely scratch the surface.
But
Sometimes.
you don't get that, they had, you know,
Yeah.
had.
And that's what, and what they scrape, that has to get taken away too.
Yeah,
And replenish it.
yeah, they add, whatever, just to make up the difference.
And this is not special sand, this is just what we got around.
I mean, it's not special in that the way that it's not available, but you do have to make sure that it's, you know, clean sand. You have to make sure it's washed, and it has to be of a certain gradation. So it doesn't have to be a specific sand, but it is available.
Somewhere between our sand and playground sand.
All right, but we're not
Yeah.
going.
No.
Nice. of you.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the kind of unfortunate thing. Even though your site is covered in sand, you can't necessarily just take something from the pit and put it into the recharge beds. Unfortunately, that would have been handy.
But in Chatham, I saw them raking the beds and it was like a little Kubota or mini tractor with a big fork in back. It's kind of like a Zen garden thing.
Yeah. I'd love that.
That's what I watched from the top of the tower.
Right.
Yeah, I was doing it.
But I guess.
I'm
this is
gonna use that one.
That's what DEP tested, that's what you guys tested, so the sand really should be, you know, the native material that currently exists on the site, right?
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to bring it in or anything or all.
Well, there's at some point, you're not gonna have, you're gonna be using our native sand, it's, you know.
It's gonna seep
You're not
in.
gonna dig it
Yeah,
out.
yeah, that's a good point, Ziad. It will be, you know, for the lower portion, it will be the native, and that's what DEP wants it to be, the native sand. But there'll be, you know, some brought in for the top.
Thank you.
Let me see if I got so yeah, that's just a close-up picture. Kind of you can see the pathway down for the maintenance. This was the building setup is a little bit different at Mashpee, so this only includes the headworks facility, but this was just a picture, you know, showing the standing seam roof and what the building could look like. These are like kind of see-through translucent panels, so it brings some light in to the building. These screens are a little bit different in Mashpee because they've got a different treatment process, but the vortex grit separator is similar. So this will be a similar unit that you'll have. And again, this is their larger, oh, somebody had a question?
When you said they have a different process, is that because technology has improved or it's just different because we thought we wanted to make it different?
Yeah, I guess I don't have the history behind Mashpee, but they have a membrane bioreactor, so an MBR. I know in a previous project before I got involved, we looked at an MBR versus an SBR, the sequencing batch reactor, and sequencing batch reactor, you know, met all of the expected permit limits and was from a capital cost and operations cost cheaper. So you know, that's why that went. I don't know the history behind Mashpee, but I could find that out. So their tanks are actually, their MBRs are actually in these tanks right here. Generator, I already saw that. Oh, these are those blowers. I think you probably saw a picture. And similar to what we will have, you know, they've got the header with a few, I guess I'll say kind of drop legs to hook up future blowers as well as they expand. So you'll have something similar to that. Oh, and this is the picture. So this is Orleans, and I think this is the one that Jackie Beebe and others went to. So this actually is about, I want to say it's like 20 to 30 feet tall.
Oh,
There's
it's a big stair. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, there's an intermediate rest platform right here, so it's definitely not it's definitely not short. I know by OSHA you have to have them like every 20 or 25 feet. So this is definitely a lot taller. So if you think this is like a 6 foot tall person, probably, maybe where this, it looks like a form ended right about here. So that's probably about the height of, what the tanks would be at Eastham. So I did want to show that. And yeah, and these were just some of the previous layouts I brought up just in case. So I guess that's what I had. Any other questions?
Why is Orleans is so tall?
So that's a good question. I don't know if it was related to the soils in the area or the hydraulics. I mean, we could have originally, when we were looking at having the treatment building on the north part of the DPW site, we were planning on having tall ones, so we wouldn't have to dig into the ground and, excavate all of that or put in sheet piling, to keep the sand out of the excavation. So that's, why we really did like putting it either, in the pit area or in this lower area, because we can take advantage of some of the lower elevations. And still put the tanks, into the ground, so there's not like a 30-foot tall tank.
So
Steve?
Orleans have these two tanks, and then the future tanks would be on that side. They haven't been built yet, but that's what they had when they reached the next phases.
Excuse me.
Do you have a question?
Yes, would it be helpful for the selling to the public if there was a visualization view from Old Orchard Road? Now that the whole product has been pushed back 250 feet further. I mean, your sight lines have just dropped tremendously from the road, I would think. I would think that would be helpful as far as what it looks like today for the public.
Yeah, we actually have been looking into how we could do that. Because obviously we don't have the model well, that one we actually do now. But we were looking at how we could do that either with some Google Street View. We've done it on some other projects, but yeah, we are looking at how we could try to do that in the next few weeks, to be able to show the town.
Okay. The second
That'd be
question
great.
is you talked about decibels within the building. Can you give examples of decibels outside the building, 100 feet away, 200 feet away, from other completed projects?
That is a great question. Yeah, I guess, I mean, so so honestly, it should be very minimal. I guess I don't necessarily have a decibel count that I could share right this second.
Maybe decibels isn't transferable to the public. Maybe it's more like you'll hear nothing,
Yeah.
or you're gonna
Yeah.
hear occasionally. There's got to be some
So,
sort of a description, I would think.
yeah, I think what I tried to put in here, and maybe I can like make it a little bit more visual, but so like for our specification, the decibel level needs to be like, they have to meet a decibel level of 77 decibels 3 feet away from the equipment. So that's in the building itself. And for comparison, a normal conversation like we're having right now is 60 to 70 decibels, and a telephone dial tone is 80. So I think maybe we could use something like that to kind of explain it. So honestly, outside the building, you
Which is
shouldn't
where the
be
public
hearing
is.
you shouldn't be
Right.
hearing anything. But we could look at I'm thinking maybe how it would sound at the trail, because that would probably be the loudest area.
I
Yeah,
think it'd be more interesting off of
So I can look at how you can kind of degrade the sound, as it goes, a few feet farther.
Watch out, that pump must make quite a bit of noise on the truck, or that can pump, take like the Honeywell, but they pump it up.
but isn't that the same as you have like in your backyard that's pumping?
It's like pulling up to the septic tank and.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
more open, the septic tank is more open, right? This is a closed connection.
Right, but the noise coming from the truck that's pumping it up, pumping it out, I'm thinking of the truck that's sitting.
I think that's probably the noise is gonna come from like the blowers and
Yeah, but
that sort of
they're
stuff.
inside, right?
like inside the building. Orleans has, I don't know if you've been in Orleans yet, but it has right, it's underground, so the first floor is a lot of the treatment stuff, and the second floor is the offices, so they have the offices on top of some of the treatment.
So they do have the blowers on the first level.
Yeah.
And the blowers are insulated, like similar to what's shown up here. And then if the doors are closed, you're not really gonna hear it.
Yeah, cause that's, I mean, they have their offices right on top.
But I think Fred's point is
Yeah.
when you do have the truck coming in, yes, the truck has its own pump. And it's gonna vacuum out all the sludge from the tanks, and you're probably gonna hear that for the 20-30 minutes that the truck is gonna be sitting there.
20, 30,
Or whatever the case might be.
but it's in that magnitude.
It's gotta be.
Yeah.
So I know when the honey wagon comes to my house, the truck, so high noise when it's pumping.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm kind of guessing it's not going to be any different than listening to the transfer station. You know, the front end loaders or the trucks coming in
Well,
hauling equipment.
I
like
think
that.
it'll actually
Yeah.
be better, cause all of this has been thoughtfully constructed, so we're trying to mitigate all those noises and sound. We've done nothing to mitigate the
It's all out in the
transfer
open.
station
It's all out in the
noises.
open.
So that's a good point then.
So
Sure.
I think that is that's the neighborhood is used to that disruption. Do they like it? No, nobody likes it. So we might want to consider that if we're upgrading the transfer station at some time too. But because I'm sure when the trucks come from restaurants to dump huge truckloads, that's loud going into the hoppers.
I guess any,
Would it be too much information if it's possible to have some kind of an animation showing wastewater comes in here, then it goes to here, then it goes to here, then it goes into a truck?
Well, I think
Is that
like
too
a
much information?
diagram.
Well, animated though, so people can actually see, you know, through a pipe in a cartoon, and you see a little flowing of liquid from this tank to that tank, to this tank, to the bed,
Well,
to
we
the
have
truck.
We
I
have
don't know,
some
I
pretty
have just,
similar.
We've had a couple information sessions, and what you're saying would be
Yeah.
great. But we've been able to describe that and that everything's underground, and I think people understand
just
that.
they're gonna go with that.
But, you know, some people don't wanna understand it because they don't want it in
Correct.
their backyard, which is understandable, but, you know, I think the verbal explanations worked, a diagram, a visualization, you know, couldn't hurt, but I don't think that's been our problem. You know,
Okay,
And
there's-
Lauren did have you did have a diagram of the main tank that's processing and how it segments out.
yeah,
I looked for it, but don't worry about it today, but.
okay, yeah, that would honestly, there's a lot of good educational materials on YouTube. You know, there's a lot of good things that, you know, if we wanted to find some good examples, you know, we could, if someone was interested, we could, you know, send them a link or, you know, have a QR code or something that they can scan.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one, I thought.
Yeah, this is one of your, let's see, this one was the April 8th, at this committee meeting, and you had this long,
Yeah,
you know, the SVR and then the cycle time on each phase. That's
Yeah.
pretty.
But it is confusing when you verbally explain it.
yeah,
Like what tanks are covered, what tanks are open, what's going in from underground versus,
Above ground.
people are nervous about anything that's open to the
above
air.
ground, yeah.
But the only thing that's open, I understand, is the SPS.
Yes,
Correct.
What's the noise level of a pumping station? Is there a noise level?
Which pumping station?
Any of the pumping stations that you put in different parts of the collection system, does that make a noise as well?
No, those are gonna be below grade pumps,
They
usually you
would
don't
be.
really hear anything, the
Okay.
only thing you would hear is the generator when it comes on, if there is a loss of power, or if there is an exercise, right?
Okay,
But usually like a smaller, as opposed to this building. you're
right,
gonna have-
I'm just asking if you're putting them in Cape Cod Children's Place or someone, or the duplex, and you're driving
Not
by
hear
on
anything.
6, would you hear it? Not hear it? I'm just curious, I just wanna,
You would not
And
hear
that-
anything.
that
and
might be
that
something to
generator's
mention.
indoors too, so that helps, it's
Oh,
it's
yeah.
in the building.
Is that a pumping station that's in the Stop and Shop parking lot?
I don't know about the Stop and Shop, there's one on Old Colony
I
Way.
know that one,
Okay.
I saw that.
Probably
A lot
Stop
of
and
it's
Shop
above
would be
ground, in the Stop and Shop
Oh,
parking lot.
next to the pizza place there, where they've got it all dug up. So
No, this is in the parking lot.
There might be something else just to
The-
have as a fact sheet, people are gonna work pumping stations,
Yeah.
well, I hear
so
them.
Yeah,
dug
they've
up the
asked
whole
that.
Because that's all, that's a
back
different
above
geography,
the
right?
alley.
Are you talking about Orleans?
Yeah,
I don't think I've seen that one.
it took them, a lot of, everything's underground, it's just one,
They look like sheds.
no, this
Oh,
thing.
they put a pump station for that, for the Stop and Shop and the development behind it. I think that's what they did. I saw that at the New Year presentation.
Okay.
So
So
it's
that's,
just its own pumping station for that whole development.
so the next time you're in the Stop and Shop, it's on the, here's the parking lot, here's
Yeah.
the Stop and Shop. It's on this, out here where you go out that other drive that goes
Yeah.
up by the bird store.
Yeah.
Right there, you'll see a big, vent pipe coming out of the ground, like cane.
Candy cane to.
Right.
Cause I go there all the time, I noticed.
You know, you know them when they were
No.
building it, but it took them.
It's a vent for the well, usually that's, you know,
It's
put a vent for the well.
So what is it, what,
Well, it's like where the wastewater goes in from
I
the
like
collection system.
Okay.
Yeah, and then gets pumped from there on.
So then the pumping station at the end of, Old Colony, it's a bunch of silver, I think that's a big generator that's, I see standing above ground.
It's in a building, isn't it?
It's right on the end of the road on the right-hand side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a little building there. It's adorable. No, I love the pump stations. They're the easy part of this whole project. Maybe there's something outside of the pump station? Is that what you're thinking? There's a generator
I
outside of
only
it?
went by it once, but
Okay.
Lauren,
Yeah.
do you have any information, and maybe you guys as well, or any of you? One of the questions and concerns is that all these properties in the neighborhood are gonna go down in value. And I've, done some preliminary searches. I haven't found much to, by way of study or analysis that says that that's true. And matter of fact, the things that I do find don't seem to be relatable to what we're doing here, so I don't, I can't really use that. And those might have a negative connotation, but again, they're not similar to what we're doing. And then when I speak to colleagues across the Cape that have done, they're saying that that's not what they're seeing. That's all anecdotal, so I can't really use that either.
Right.
So I'm looking for something that might indicate it's someone's actual experience. So if, with your experience with other clients and other communities, what has been the impact of the similar type plants on the immediate neighborhood? If that was anything that you had any resources that we could share, that would be helpful for us to explain to, the community.
Yeah, that is a,
For example, Mashpee, that's not even in service yet, is it?
no, it's still in construction, I think. Early, yeah, at least the upgrade. I can check in with, especially, the Massachusetts staff. But
Yeah,
yeah,
just-
I'm not familiar with anything that would say, I mean, honestly, usually when a collection system and wastewater treatment plant comes in, it ends up boosting property
Right.
values. And honestly, in my area, we have a lot of surface water discharges. So a lot of treatment plants are located on rivers and lakes that are really nice, expensive properties. And there's really expensive, nice homes that are built next to the treatment plant, well after the treatment plant was built, which I always find interesting. And they still hold their value.
Just my experiences, I think I agree with you, and I think it does tend to increase value, but again, it's not scientifically, it's not a study.
Yeah.
It's just my lived experience and my, anecdotal evidence that I got from colleagues in various communities, but I can't rely on that, and I don't wanna overpromise something to people when I'm speaking to the subject, so.
Yeah, I'll see what I can find in Massachusetts, and also, there's the Water Environment Federation, which has a lot of, I guess, materials online that you can search through, like old journals and, you know, publications. So I'll see what I can find as far as that goes, and then I'll check in with the Massachusetts staff in particular, see if they have anything one way or the other.
Yeah, it would, seem like it would be useful if there was a similar sized plant in similar proximity to the neighborhood. I mean, otherwise,
I just don't know how many of those we're gonna.
well, that's what I wondered, if he might be able to dig some up.
Because it's
that are
pretty small.
comparable. Yeah.
Well, even if it's a larger plant that shows
Oh,
that there's been no.
Yeah.
That
But,
that's,
but,
you know,
but with 500 feet from the neighborhood or wherever we are.
Mhm.
That's what everybody's worried about.
What about real estate values after they discovered the?
We have 550 feet from the road.
With the transfer station, you know, I mean, people that had to deal with the plume coming out of the transfer station, and that, did we ever track the property
Absolutely,
values
property
there?
values rose dramatically when we put the public water system in.
Right.
But there were lots of studies that showed that property values went up when you have infrastructure connections.
Right. So did those properties, the values dropped when we first discovered the problem?
Yes.
Right.
feel like it's a little bit different because,
But they built a house right across the street.
Well,
from the transfer
you know,
station.
you've got a toxic plume that you're trying, you know, going to your groundwater. And now you don't, so that's a clear, hey, that's gonna make it better.
Right.
People don't think of nitrogen as a problem, you know, it is.
Right.
And this would make it better. And so I would equate that to the water thing at the same, but people don't see it that way. I mean, they've been living with all this nitrogen for all these years, why do we need it now, right?
Right, but the property values there now are back up to where, on par with the rest of the town. In as much as they were before.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Generally speaking, when you bring the sewer, property values go up, right? You don't have to deal with septic, you don't have to deal with nitrogen, you don't have to deal with any of these things.
Yeah.
But I don't know, you know, like, I think it has to be like case by case when you take a look at a specific neighborhood or a house or two houses adjacent to a wastewater treatment plant to determine if the value is gonna go up or it's gonna go down, right? You can't really do this whole exercise based on a townwide thing, it's just the immediate neighborhood, right? That's what we're
Right.
talking about here. And I don't
Yeah.
think there's anything on, you know, I did the same thing. I don't think there's a study to kind of suggest that, you know, at least nothing that I've seen.
But the reason the value would go down is because you feel like you've been impacted, and so. I think we, you know, I feel pretty confident about the noise impacts. You know, I think the only exposure we have there is the truck coming out to pump.
Once a day.
But that's kind of all mixed in with the operation of the transfer station, so I don't know how there's that much more than what you might.
Folds in.
Right.
And I think visually, we will be addressing that, and we committed to, you know, improving that vegetative buffer. And personally, I don't think odors are gonna be too bad, but again, we can never guarantee that 100%. But it also depends on time of day. I mean, you have to be outside, you know, if you're, you know, have to have an odor occasionally, and you have to be outside, because at the right time of day, to smell it. So. But I think that's the big one, is the odor, because I think all the other ones we've addressed.
But is it
We
gonna
had-
be
we had
much different
something-
than when you order it at the transfer station in the middle of summer?
Yeah, I just think we need something more definitive on the odor, and that,
Great.
I think that would be very helpful, absent a study. Because I don't think we're gonna find one, it's specific to our situation. But I think, Lauren, we really need more information, not just the technology, I mean, although the technology is important, but just very practical examples of what you ought to expect for odor. And if the answer is none, then we ought to say that, but you know. Or if it's, you know, under these certain conditions, which might happen X number of times a month or a quarter or a year, you can expect an odor.
So it's weird because I think I learned a lot about this when we were studying the wind turbines in Wellfleet, and that was like 25 years ago, how sound travels and what baffles sound. Because sound does go out and down as opposed to, but I know I lived in Wellfleet on very, very close to Route 6. Some days, all I heard was the traffic noise. Some days I could hear the ocean and smell the ocean. So you just, and you couldn't, I couldn't, yeah, I could not, I'm sure there was a pattern to it, like a wind pattern or something, but I couldn't, discern that. It's just like you have one or the other or nothing. It's neutral. There's also a neutral time, but
If the odor is really an earthy type of smell, like I'm thinking park mulch or something.
I was thinking like a giant
Really
compost
nice
heap
to-
or something.
Quantify that or.
yeah, it's
somehow
not
put
like
that-
bark much. I think we have to go back. I have to go back. It's been a while, but I remember it being like in the headworks room, a stale smell.
Yeah. People should know that.
And we really,
Yeah.
I think we really need, either this committee and select board and finance committee or whomever, citizens that wanna go too. Because,
Take a tour.
we cannot, not everyone's gonna be able to go on a tour, but if, somebody complains that this is gonna be very odorous.
Yeah.
And we've had a bunch of people that have done the tours. Maybe they can speak to that, and we can speak to it, but, sometimes it's better coming from, other people.
And Orleans has offered, so we just have to kind of get ourselves
Coordinate.
together and try and coordinate something.
But you also got the septic in Orleans that you wouldn't have here.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
Right.
But they have a system. I think the septic smell would be more accurate in Chatham because they have an outdoor valve,
Mm.
right, that you connect to when the septic transfers. Whereas Orleans has the airlock garage, so the truck goes into garage,
It's contained.
so
Yeah, I did see the pictures on that. That's pretty cool.
it is. Who else has that's accepting septic? That's
Right?
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
usually it's just like a hose into an open tank. I mean, honestly, it's what it is a lot.
it's pretty
Um,
nifty.
I haven't been to
Yeah.
Orleans. Is there a neighborhood close by?
No,
Maybe.
see, they had the Tri-Town
It was
treatment
where
plant
that
was
was anyway.
there, and they have a lot more land mass than we do, so they don't have the park, right? So,
there are some houses up Overland Drive.
yes, but it's not, there's houses,
But not
but
close.
they're not as close as ours are.
No. Whenever you can schedule that.
Yeah.
I'm signing up.
All right,
Sign me up too.
I'm in.
we'll try and get a committee visit.
Hey, Hillary,
Just
question?
a quick question, yeah, while we're talking about the visit, would it be better to visit Plymouth over Chatham because Plymouth is a newer plant?
Oh, maybe.
No, Plymouth is not, it's 1990.
Oh, it's older, okay.
Mashpee, right? Maybe you meant Mashpee?
Mashpee, well, no, I wasn't thinking Mashpee because they don't have SBR, they have MBR. So I think we want to visit the
Like
same.
I could arrange for Plymouth visit, but it is 1990 and it is an SBR, but it also receives septic from
Yeah.
Hollard. And it's located within, right off of 3A, but within the, the industrial park area of Plymouth. I could certainly arrange for something like that if you want.
Is Orleans SBR?
MBR,
Yeah, Orleans is, and I want to say, is it Falmouth that's an SBR also? I have it written down somewhere. All the SBRs. But yeah, I know like Jeff is, talked about it too. If there's any plants that we want to go to, we can, help coordinate. I think between Ziad and Jackie and us, we can figure out what would be best.
Yeah, and then do it, because I think that would be really good.
Yeah, I think it, having some of you have firsthand experience again of, okay, this is what this looks like, this is what this smells like. I think that'll go a long way. And I can put a little bit more information on the odors, because really, like I could say none for the SBR tanks, and then we can specifically say, when the truck is, loading sludge, and then we can talk about when the roll-up door is open, It's essentially when the roll-up doors open in the Headworks facility, because they would have turned the odor control unit off, because you don't want to pull the outside air in.
Yeah.
So when that's open for some reason, which typically would be if you're, bringing grit or screenings to be brought to the
Right.
landfill.
So that's exactly so I think that's what we're trying to explain to people.
Okay.
What I'm trying to understand and what I'm trying to explain to people are, where are the points that there's going to be smell or there might be smell, and what are we doing to mitigate that?
Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we need the when in there too.
Yeah, whether it's scheduling or, limiting to certain hours of the day or certain times of the day, I don't know, but.
And actually, you just remind me something, Lauren, I meant to bring this up a while back at one of our meetings. I did understand that the Headworks room was kind of the spot that was gonna generate a lot of the odor. I know you've got a tight spot, but if even just for, say, phase one, if it's possible, is it possible to have like almost like not necessarily an airlock, I don't mean it that way, but at least a double door system?
We were looking at some different options. I mean, from like a man door entry. The roll-up door, I don't know if we could do that necessarily for the roll-up door, but I guess, do we really need trying to think.
I was thinking for the roll-up door, but any entrance for that matter, if you had one that you opened that was exterior, then you walked into a vestibule, closed that one, and then opened up another one.
Yeah, because I know we were looking at a couple different vestibules, and now I'm trying to remember if it was next to the Headworks room or if it was in the chemical room. But yeah, we can look into that.
So, Lauren, just for the purpose of this discussion, the screening and the grit classifier, those would have to be, I know I did one, the pump station in Plymouth had the Headworks on Water Street, but the plant doesn't really have, just an SBR plant, and there's a force main that pumps at about 5 miles. To Richard's point, I think the screening room, that's gonna be the most smell, and I think you're probably gonna have a dumpster in there, right? To be able to collect all the large pieces. So that is classified, and usually explosion proof. All the equipment in that area is explosion proof because of the potential odors. So I think you have to have some sort of a roll-up door to have a truck back up and then haul the dumpster out of there. And in the case of Plymouth, I think they had, even though it's a 5 MGD, they hauled the dumpster once every other week, right? The grit that comes out of it all depends on the system, but the grit generation isn't really that much because you could just basically put it in the bag, it's sand and a little bit of gravel. But definitely the Headworks would have to have some sort of a roll up to people to back up and then get the dumpster out.
Right. Yeah, and I guess the other comment on that for additionally how we're mitigating odors is, and I think I mentioned it at one of the other presentations, but we are washing the grit. So you're essentially washing all of the, organics or smelly stuff off of your sand and gravel. And then we're also putting in a washer compactor on the screening. So it's not even just dumping into a dumpster, which when you go for a site visit, that might be what you see. It's actually getting squeezed in through a screw press to squeeze out the water, to wash out some more of the organics, and then you can put it in it essentially goes into a sleeve that kind of, I don't know, it's like a big sausage sleeve that you just throw into the dumpster. So there's less water in it and less odors. And I think actually I had a picture. Oh, which one is it? Nope. Sorry, now I have so many PowerPoints, I don't remember. So yeah, well, this is where it's coming out of. So it's actually coming out of here and going into a plastic sleeve. And I think I've got that. If you have another question, I'll grab it while we're talking. But yeah, so you're making it even better because you're not just dumping it into a dumpster straight, you're actually washing it out essentially and taking the water out of it.
And I think it's the details, like into a plastic sleeve, into a plastic trash bag, rather than anything that interact with the open air.
Right, that's a good point. So yeah, I
Those are the
think,
things we need to know so that we can explain it to them.
so I think it's this picture, nope. Oh, yeah, here we go. So yeah, this is the washer compactor. Like, this is like a plastic sleeve that the screenings will go into, and they've just got it in like a brute container. You know, I think we've got calculations on how much you would expect to see, but you know, it's kind of hard to tell until, you know,
Yeah,
things start coming down. But yeah, that's what you would see, and you know, that helps mitigate the odors even more for whenever the doors open. But yeah, we can look at least for like a man door doing some type of airlock.
okay.
You know, just that photograph. It'd be nice for people to
Yeah.
see
Yeah,
what the inside of this thing is gonna, how clean it is. And
Yeah,
I don't know if people understand that.
no,
mhm.
I just,
Yeah.
some of the pictures, I'm not sure, like, that's a good one. I'm not sure what I'm looking at, so I don't want to show it to someone else unless I'm sure of
I would
what.
just show it, to show them how clean it is, not necessarily. You know, that's,
And that's why I like the visits, you know, because they're exceptionally clean.
yeah. How many people you can get on those tours?
I could arrange for Hyannis, and even though Hyannis is kind of dated and nothing similar to what you're trying to do here, but I could do Plymouth or Hyannis.
Okay.
There was a meeting last week, information meeting, I heard through the grapevine, like 50 people there,
Yeah,
so. Be nice if it was a multiple of that, but I mean,
well, we've had 2, so we have 4 planned.
okay,
We've had 2 already, and we've had a similar amount of people at both.
okay,
There must have been the temperature.
yeah.
No, I think it's just, you know, people are interested in this or they're not.
Sure.
It's really just that simple. Some people have made up their mind one way or the other. Some people are, but I think the people that go to the info sessions the feedback has been very positive. To the general one, so, you know, we're honing it, we're improving it, we're answering more questions.
Is there a reason why we have to see anything besides Orleans? Isn't Orleans a pretty much a 1-for-1, similar to what we're building?
No, because aren't they doing,
You said it was.
So the
SB.
Orleans, the only difference is they don't have the recharge beds. They have wick wells, so it's
right.
basically.
but
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I think
But the
Orleans is a
recharge
good model, it's active, it's operating.
Close.
The only thing that's different is we're not accepting outside sludge, so,
And they're not next to a neighbor.
and our tanks aren't massive.
And it's new.
I mean, they're massive, but they're underground massive.
But it's close by.
That might be a good thing to see, yeah. So-
Yeah, it's been operating, what, about a year and a half, maybe, year and a half.
It is clean, it is nice to look at, brand new, right, so, and they're very accommodating.
It's an outside contractor, Viola has that contract, and they seem to be doing a great job.
Yeah, from the new factor, I can check in to see how far along Mashpee is. Because that's at least, you know, pretty and new, and it's a good visual for the recharge beds. You know, obviously it's MBR. But if there's interest,
Okay,
I think we can
I thought they
coordinate.
could, and Mashpee was, what, phase 1, phase 2 were done, right? I thought, that's what I thought.
I did think one phase was already done. But I don't want to quote because I'm not 100% sure.
I think it's almost ready. I'm not sure if it's operational, but yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely some of the pictures I think that I showed were from January. So I think it's getting pretty close.
Any update or anything on the cost estimating or value engineering? Are you there yet?
Well, we don't do value engineering until we have, I mean, we did, Lauren and her team submitted the 30% design. That was
Yeah.
based on the previous layout, so we had provided some comments because of the time and the time constraints. So basically, we're kind of working with them on addressing some of these comments as they continue to move forward on the next phase, right? So value engineering could probably be done at the next submission. You know, anything,
Something in here about it being done in April.
Yeah, no,
no.
Forget that.
In April, yeah. It's crunch time now, so,
So 60%.
yeah, I mean, I think, Lauren, I don't know if you, what's your update on the next phase here, next submission, so.
Yeah, actually, Jackie Tupper and I were talking about that earlier. We're looking at the schedule, obviously, with some of the redesign of the site plan. You know, we kind of went a little slower at the moment. So looking at a new date with the team, actually on Wednesday, I've got a meeting scheduled. So I'm hoping to be able to have an updated 60% next when we talk at our bi-weekly meeting next Tuesday. So we can really, you know, hone in on a workshop date that hopefully melds with everyone's vacation schedules in July. But yeah, we're targeting July, and we'll see what date for a workshop it works for everybody. I'm hopeful.
So you do a cost estimating exercise at the 60%?
Yeah, so
Uh,
we're oh, go ahead,
You're
Dan.
good. I mean, I know they're doing one and we're gonna be doing one at the same time.
At around the 60%.
Yeah,
And that's when the value engineering, if any, would follow.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
see,
with the
well, the
cost.
value engineering would basically, if we're changing anything in the process, anything of substance, right?
Yeah.
Or is there anything we could, you know, make efficient or save money or maybe improve upon, that's what we'd be looking at.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's helpful. I mean, we're meeting bi-weekly with everybody, and then, you know, Jackie and I feel like Jackie Tupper and I are talking like every other day. So
and thank you for the quick redesigning. It really, it's a game changer for us.
yeah, no, I think it was good feedback, and you know, we want to make sure that the community is happy, and obviously votes yes for the project because it's important. So I think you know, we still were able to incorporate a lot of the work that we had already done, but accommodate some of the community's concerns, and ultimately that's what we're doing this for. So
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
think it's a better product in the end. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah,
So
you're welcome.
our next meeting would be June 10th, unless we can try and work out some tours before that, which we'll try to do. We have 2 more info sessions. One is next week, Wednesday, the 21st at the COA at 11:30. Those meetings that we've done at the COA are usually very well attended. I had over 50 people the last time I went there. And then our second info session will be June 2nd. We're dedicating a whole select board meeting to it. So that'll be that one. And then once we get into June, we're gonna have office visits set up in different locations. So we'll 2 or 3 of the select board members, myself, Rich, Hillary, will be kind of covering a couple of hours at the COA, a couple of hours at the library, a couple of hours here at town hall, wherever, you know, in different times of the day and different days of the week, so that we can get people's individual questions answered before. We're also doing an update to the booklet. Hillary's including some more detail on IA systems and sort of the community solution aspect of the project. And what else are we doing, Rich? Did I miss something?
Do anything at the transfer station? Just have somebody there, that's
Yeah,
quite
idea.
a couple of people.
Oh, yeah, we could do that. We could add that to
Nobody goes
the,
I
there.
mean, I'm willing to volunteer to. do
Okay.
that. Once I've been on one of these, just.
Yeah,
but.
We're also giving presentations to the Board of Health and the Conservation Commission.
What dates are that? Do you remember?
I want to say conservation is the second Tuesday, so I want to say that that's June 10th. And then Board of Health, I'm going to do the last Thursday in May. which is May 29th. And coupled with that is a freshwater pond workshop. So that should be an interesting group of people.
Yeah, well, we definitely want to get the pond people on board too. So I think that's awesome. So, I know we're late with our outreach, but we have been extremely consistent with it, at least.
And we also have kept the part-time residents
Yeah.
association in the loop with newsletter articles and information there also.
I'm 100% sure that if part-time residents have been reading their newsletter for the past 2 years, they know way more about this project than any full-time resident. Because Carolyn is doing a phenomenal job getting everything, and she's asked Hillary to keep churning them out. So they've done a wonderful job. And I think, we're trying to catch up. But Kayla and Rich worked very hard on the booklet, and Hillary. It was a team effort, but thanks to Kayla, it looks pretty and it reads.
No, and my wife is one of the most critical people that I've ever met. When she reads something, she can pick, and she read this and she thought this was very good.
Oh, good. See, yeah, I mean, it's
Kudos
just,
to you guys for the.
it's so helpful, and so that in its revised version, so we're gonna add a couple of things to that, and then that will go out in the warrant for town meeting with the warrant article and the summary and the whole.
Could you just send us a tickler when the new one comes out, so we don't miss it?
Yeah.
Speaking of the warrant, when is that warrant article gonna be ready?
Monday night.
Because we have a finance committee meeting.
Oh, you might have a preview for Thursday. It'll be ready
Yeah,
for
it's good.
Thursday, maybe.
I was gonna send it out to you. Might be tomorrow at this point, but for the Thursday meeting update. Cause it's pretty much ready. I don't think it's gonna change.
The lawyers are
So we
still
could-
I sent
tweaking.
it to bond
do a
counsel.
recommendation based on the draft that you get.
Or maybe you feel you're not quite ready yet, and I was gonna suggest perhaps you could keep it, defer it till town meeting floor type of thing.
Oh, and when does it have to go to the printer?
Tuesday,
Tuesday.
It's coming Tuesday,
yes.
so Monday. Tuesday.
There are lots of, the deadlines have been kind of intense.
Yeah, the
to be honest.
So we'll have to decide what we're doing on Thursday. The finance committee.
Yeah.
So next Monday goes to the printer, or
Next Tuesday, yeah.
Week from today.
So the select board will vote the ballot questions, recommend the article or put it on the warrant and
Right.
then recommend it, and then we go to the printers. And then that will be mailed out to everybody too. We're gonna do the same thing, just like a regular annual town meeting. We may need a finance committee transfer.
Just one other piece on outreach. We were going to attempt to translate the booklet for our environmental justice folks and have
Amazing.
it in translation available at the library, the COA, at the food pantry, possibly at the community fridge because it's right out back. So that might be nice too. And have that available.
You're amazing. All right.
And Hillary, you said the Board of Health meeting is when?
May 29th.
And the
To the
other one
best,
is,
it's the last Thursday. It's the last Thursday in May.
and the other one is the Board of Conservation, you said, or did I
The
get that?
Conservation Commission.
Commission, that what date is when?
June 10th.
I want to say that's June 10th, but I sometimes get my first, second, and third Tuesdays confused.
Okay.
I think it's the second Tuesday and you're correct.
That's what I thought. Yeah. The 10th.
Just wanted to encourage everybody on the committee here. I'll say the same thing in the finance committee tomorrow is to really talk this up to people because, if you're just against it, then you're against it and we're not going to change your mind. But for those that are on the fence or don't quite understand what it is, they need to because this is really the best offer we're going to get for a long time. And So it is important and people need to understand it. I think when we did the outreach session, I think most people get it,
Mhm.
that want to get it. So there's some people that just don't want it and probably because they're in the neighborhood, or they just don't believe that they're gonna have to put in an IA system, so what, this is just another thing that the town's asking me to do. And those people were just not gonna change their minds, but, we really encourage you to talk to the people that you know, so that you hear their issues, and if you hear something, let us know so we can respond to it.
Yeah,
So Hillary, the IA information session you said you were gonna have, so how do you couch information about that as opposed to this? Because when you look at the, you know, the information guide that we're looking at, it talks about the IA systems as, I don't not want to say pejoratively, but it sort of makes a point of saying that they don't last as long, they don't solve the problem. So when you have an information session about it, how do you have an information session about something that you want to sort of put on a lower scale of usefulness?
So we had a really detailed information session as part of that cesspool workshop several months back. And what we presented was actual data from how the systems are functioning. And some function well, some function really poorly. Certain systems, like brands, types, function better than other systems. And at the end of the day, they work better than a Title V. So what we know is we don't have capacity in Eastham at the moment to site a collection and treatment system for the whole town with recharge. So it's not perfect. It's not perfect. We never sold the IAs as perfect. It's just a solution to do better than a Title V. So I think, that's how I.
Thinking about as you're
and
positioning this.
And some, it will be required for some properties, and Hillary knows the 4 reasons off the top of her
And
head.
those are the levels of questions that we bounce immediately to Hillary. So there will be
Okay.
people there are people that come to info sessions and they'll be like, okay, so I live in blank place. Am I gonna, and not in the sewer district, am I going to have to do an IA system? And Hillary can look at those properties and tell them under what conditions they might still have to do IA. And so we just send those individual ones, because they're not questions we can answer as a blanket group.
They have to do an eye even in spite of our system, or if we didn't do the system.
So it's,
In spite of.
Yeah, it's required. It's currently required in the Board of Health regulations under different scenarios. One is a variance to the well, one is for a wetland resource on the property, one is if you're increasing above your nitrogen load and capacity, and the fourth is if your lot is 20,000 square feet directly abutted by 2 properties that are also 20,000 square feet or less. So each scenario is different. And, we had a woman today who asked a question on Kier Drive. So, it involves some research. So it's not just a quick answer, because we need to pull up their site plan, see if they're on municipal water, check out what they have, how many bedrooms, where their lot's located, look at the map, see what they're around. So it's best that people reach out if they have questions. And we have taken in a number of questions from a number of different people about so many different topics. So I think we've been really quite good about responding to inquiries. So I don't want people to, feel like they're troubling us or, hesitant to ask a question. So I would encourage your friends, family, whomever, if they have questions, just reach out, because every question gets a response.
And one of those conditions, you're interfering with a well, we have public water, so that could cure that condition. You see what I'm saying? So it's sometimes it's people's preferences. We want to do 2 more
So you put
bedrooms.
water in and I have to put an IA system.
Yeah, right. So,
but that's a smaller subset of most of the rest of the
Right.
town outside of the sewer area. So outside the sewer area, you can maintain your Title V, except for the 4 reasons that Hillary.
And Hillary, just a rough guess, how many people fall into that, one of those 4
Oh my God.
categories?
Oh my gosh, I have absolutely no idea, but I think quite a few, based on our ponds, our wetlands, our flood zones. we don't have so many under 20,000 square foot lots. We have a lot of people that want to add extra bedrooms. So I think quite a few. I can't give you a number right now, but we are engaged in a mapping process with the Cape Cod Commission to map some wetland resource areas. So I may have a better number in the near future, but I think we told them they didn't need to get us the map until the fall. So it would be after town meeting.
And we do have a lot of IA systems already. I mean, the town has
Right, you have
several.
one right across the street.
IAs.
Yeah.
We have one at Town Center Plaza, we have one right across the street, the
And
fire
we have
station has
over
one, the
there,
library
even though
has
the
one,
sewer- So.
The high school has
the
one.
high school has one.
Mm,
And we do have that mapped. So we have our cesspools mapped, and we have that overlaid by the sewer district. We have our IA systems mapped, and we can commingle the cesspools with the IA map, but I don't know that we took the IA map to the sewer map yet. So we have different maps and different layers.
You're
So-
doing great, Hal,
We-
doing great.
Move that, Gloria's property over to the sewer once it goes by the street, or no?
Yeah, well, you have to.
Probably, yeah.
Right,
If
you-
the
you'll
sewer
abandon
goes
the
by,
IA
yes.
system and go to the- You just put that in because you had the timing. right?
Well, we put that in because it was a sale, a point of sale, so the DEP required that in order to have anyone live there, we had to upgrade the system to an IA.
Oh, that's good.
But that's a 7-bedroom, so it's
Is that
different,
what's gonna be, there's 2 in the house and there's
Yeah.
and a 5 in the,
yeah.
and that's gonna be the total on the property
Yeah.
that we do?
I was talking to some people today